Hi, I'm Bonnie Mincu, Senior Certified ADHD Coach and founder of Thrive with ADD, and you're listening to ADHD Self Mastery. Today I'm interviewing Tracy Brown, and she is a fabulous, accomplished, and very funny person who just, by the way, has ADHD. And the reason I say by the way is Tracy's on my marketing team. And she's done customer reach out and support for my Productivity Pathfinder ADHD membership program for about 2 years. And she may have mentioned she had ADHD herself to me back when she was first working with me. But if she did, it was really just sort of an aside because I just don't remember that. And last week, I asked Tracy if she could facilitate my Community Monday meetings for the Pathfinder people since I'd be on vacation. And she said, yeah, I'd really enjoy that because I never get to hang out with other people with ADD. And that's when I said, wait a minute, you mean you really have ADD or ADHD? And she said, yeah, she's been taking Adderall for years. And I was really thrilled about that because Tracy is so amazing. And I knew right then I wanted her to be a guest on this ADHD Self Mastery podcast. So here is Tracy Brown. And I'm going to talk her through some of the interesting things about her life and mainly about her perspective on life, which is really why I wanted to interview her. So Tracy, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to do this with you.
This is just wonderful. Yeah, I'm really glad that you are. So just in kind of broad strokes, tell us about where you grew up, your family. You had a bunch of brothers.
Yeah, so I am obviously from the Carolinas. If you hear me speak, I'm very Southern. I grew up in the Carolinas my whole life. I live in the Myrtle Beach area of South Carolina now. But I grew up in Western North Carolina. I have 3 brothers and 1 sister. We're kind of a blended family, typical American family, with his, hers, ours, kids. But I was lucky enough to get step siblings that you never hear us say step. I think we kind of landed the jackpot on our blended family when it comes to our siblings. So
that's pretty good. Do you feel like, or looking back now, do you believe any of your siblings were ADHD as well?
No, I think I'm totally the only one.
Wow. So you must have felt a little difference in your family.
Oh, yeah. And they're all like very artsy and creative. And no, I'm totally the odd man out. Yeah.
That's funny because often the ADHD child is the artsy creative one. And they might say things, yeah, my sibling's a doctor, a lawyer, Wall Street, something like that. So there's, real interesting. Bucks the stereotype there.
My brothers are in construction, but they are very like my one of my brothers does hardwood floors, but he's like does these really crazy creative like things in these really like fancy homes like with hardwood floors. Like it's amazing the work he does. So that's where he like pulls out his artistic side. It's amazing. So I grew up there. I was married. I'm going through a divorce, but I have 2 kids. I just went off to college. My first one just went to college, and I have my son's in school. I'm playing soccer in college, and then my daughter is a junior in high school.
Really good. Well, I'm going to be asking you about the kids a little later. I want to go back a little bit to your childhood.
Okay.
If we can do that. So you felt kind of the odd one in your family. And then when you were in school, did you feel a little bit different than a lot of other kids in the way you were learning?
It was very obvious. I couldn't sit down and read books. I did well in school. I had good grades, but if I heard something,
not because you studied hard though, right?
No, if I heard it, I knew it. Like if I had a teacher that lectured, I just remembered things really well. But if I had to read a book, and I had friends who would just read books and knock them out and knock them out and knock them out. And I couldn't understand, like I couldn't sit and read a book, and I couldn't get through a page. I couldn't get through a paragraph and read a book, and I wouldn't, like I'd have to reread a paragraph 3 times to understand what I had read. And I could read, like I could tell you what the words said, but then I'd read a paragraph and couldn't tell you what the paragraph said. It was
so
really
that's like a classic reading comprehension. I guess they'd call that a learning disability, but into that very specific reading comprehension area. Yeah. Not dyslexia, nothing like that. It was really specific.
I didn't enjoy sitting still. So like being still with a book, all I was doing was, I think a lot of it was just, I was thinking of everything else I wanted, like going on too. And, I wanted to do, I had 10 other things going through my head. And so that was always difficult for me. So I just figured out how to pass a test. I figured out how to take a test. And if you can figure out how to take a test, you can get through school, right?
Did you remember, did you ever like sit down with yourself and think, okay, I am going to figure out test taking strategy? Or did it just kind of natural came to you?
I don't know if we discussed this, but I thought about it later after we talked. My dad taught me how to play poker when I was a little kid. And he always taught me strategies of how to do things and how to win, and how to pay attention to what other people did. And teachers always made their tests the same way. Each teacher had a certain pattern how they made a test. And it went with their personality. Like I had one teacher who they did a multiple choice test and it always spelled out a word.
I think if I had a teacher like that, I doubt if I would have even noticed it spelled out a word. Wow.
Yeah. So if you could figure out what the word was, you could pass the test. His name was Coach Prue and he taught U.S. history in 11th grade.
Yeah. What a memory. Wow.
Yeah. So
all right.
These were things like, those are strategies. Like if you could figure out the strategy, you could pass, and you could pass well. And so everybody.
So you never decided, hey, I can't sit down and read a book and get anything out of it, so I'm a bad student.
No,
I'm just going to blow off school.
Yeah, I just figured out, okay, how can I do well with what I got? I think that's what my dad always taught me is like, how do you play the hand you're dealt? Like he always said, you can play with, you can win with any hand. You just got to figure out how to win with that hand. So
they should be writing, instead of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's like, did my dad teach me how to play poker? Great life lesson from a poker playing dad. That sounds really good.
Funny that he did that. But
I think it's great. It's given you a lot of wisdom though for life.
But he would do that and he would talk about other things when I was little too. And I didn't realize how much it kind of flowed over into other things we would talk about. Because he passed away when I was 13. So I really didn't even have that many years with him. But those were things he'd always say is, how you just, use what you got. And, because there's always somebody that's got a skill you don't have.
Right.
So you work with what you got and figure out how to make it work.
And we'll talk a little later about this, how to use the skills that other people have to your advantage as well. But I had asked you about math because when you told me a little bit about how your brain worked, I sort of suspected that you and math, you never had to go through those little steps of problem solving.
No, I used to get in trouble all the time. So I did really well in math, but I could just look at a problem and tell them the answer. And in algebra, they want you to show all the steps.
Right.
And I would be like, well, why do
because they want to see how you think. Did you learn how to think through the problem?
And I would be like, well, I know the answer. So what does it matter? Because I could get the answer. And then I was like, why are you wasting my time doing that? And finally, and when I got to high school, I had a teacher who finally had me tested to be gifted back then I think they called it academically gifted or whatever. And she's like, why haven't you done this? And I was like, well, I don't know, because I wouldn't do the work. I just would write down the answer and they were wondering if you were cheating or not. But I could just work backwards. I'd just work backwards through something. It was just the way my brain worked. And my son does the same thing with math. And I finally told him, I was like, I did the same thing. Just write it out, keep your teachers happy and get through. Yep. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do to get through the class.
Yeah.
In the real world, nobody cares.
Well, wait, it depends. If you
Well,
have a boss who wants to do pedantic step by step by step, they care. So you almost have to fake it. But luckily for you, you never had that kind of situation. But we'll get into, life after school. And you did things kind of it's funny, as we were talking earlier, I was thinking, man, she is like in every way flip opposite of me. So you got married early, right?
mhm. I did.
And then
I divorced
not
early.
super early, probably.
No, I
Not
did.
that early.
I did. I got married the first time early.
Okay.
I got married at 19 and then went to college.
Yeah.
And started in a direct sales company with Mary Kay and moved very quickly through that company.
Now, tell us a little bit about Mary Kay. You had to do sales, right?
Sales, and then it started building a team. But I always played sports too, and I think it's just a matter of I've always been very coachable, and I always was very intentional about who I learned from and who I took advice from. I never take advice from anybody who doesn't take their own advice. And I was always very coachable. I wanted to learn. I still love to learn.
So what did you do with that kind of philosophy? Let's take you back to when you first started with Mary Kay.
So how
did you succeed so fast?
I looked at the people who were in leadership roles, and I followed them around and then just copied and did what they did.
And did they know you were doing that? Did you tell them, hey, I'd like to copy you?
Okay. I was very intentional about it. And the ones that were like upper level, that if they weren't driving a pink Cadillac, I didn't hang out with them.
All right, now you got to tell us about pink Cadillac, because some people don't know what that's all about. Mary Kay rewards their really top people with a pink Cadillac.
So there's different levels of cars you can earn in the company, but pink Cadillac is like the upper echelon. It's like top 1% or something of the company. So like that is the upper echelon of the company.
And that's a huge company, isn't it?
I mean, huge. Like at the time, I think they were in like 28 countries, and
oh my God. So upper top percent, that's like really something.
Oh yeah. Oh, most definitely.
Learn more about Bonnie and her Productivity Pathfinder training program for ADHD adults at thrivewithadd.com.